conversation around reimagining leadership. You and I talked about initially this shock of this global pandemic created a crisis, created, when our lives and our livelihoods are threatened, you're right, it becomes that hunting mentality. Once that initial shock kind of wears off, I think you and I talked about this idea of resilience, right? Really understanding that this thing might be with us for a while. So how do I adapt? How do I really think differently about business? Talk about what you're seeing and what you really like seeing in leaders within Cipla who've learned to adapt and really build their resilient leadership through this process.
So I think let's start. I mean, I'd love to start with myself first. In person, I think the big thing for me once this whole crisis and it broke out, I think the big thing was just hope. So if you are not hopeful yourself, it's very difficult for you to motivate a set of people, right? So I think personally, we've been trying to encourage our leaders to have more gratitude, right? Because I think you can feel miserable about where you are, David, but there is always a set of people who are more miserable than you are, right? And I think one has to have that feeling of gratitude. I think gratitude brings in a lot of, it kind of motivates you in a very different way. So we've been trying to, promote two values internally. One is never give up hope. The second, and within that, is subsume the fact that, look, you, Cipla, as a company that makes drugs, that provides cure, are actually one of the people who the world is looking to with hope, right? To make a difference. And this connects beautifully with our caring for life philosophy, right? That there's hope and we're caring to make that hope become alive. And then it's the other thing, it's just gratitude, right? That look, many things will happen which are not in your control, but just be thankful for what you can do. So I think these two qualities, in some way, I think both hope and gratitude allow you to be more resilient. Right?
You're exactly right. And I often think about, we're blessed because most of us are knowledge workers. Think about, we've got access to internet.
Correct.
We've got access
Correct.
to all kinds of learning and growth opportunities. By the way, we're all working from a comfortable home and we've got, food in the fridge and roof on our heads. Think
Absolutely.
of the labor, think of all the people that this global pandemic is impacting, where their lives and their livelihoods are on the line on a daily basis. And back to your gratitude, you feel blessed on a daily basis that you're able to not just create impact, but your work matters. And in simplest scenario, the drug making and the drug distribution and saving lives is all that we're all going to care about at this moment, where our very lives are threatened and lives of our loved ones are threatened. And your heart goes out to the global number of people that have perished and people that can't attend their families' funerals because of, due to social distance.
Absolutely.
And it really recenters you around all that we're blessed with. So the gratitude absolutely comes front and center. What are some of the behaviors, some of the leadership behaviors you've seen or you think about that you believe will stay with us in this after COVID, after pandemic world?
So I think the biggest behavior that I think, David, is being dialed up, right? Across society, across corporations, across us as individuals is empathy. I think this is going to stick even beyond the pandemic because people are beginning to realize circumstances that others operate in. So I want to give you a small snippet. I was having this conversation. I said, it's great, right? Digital allows people to stay at home, not travel, right? Have so much free time. Until I heard the other view, right? Apartments in Mumbai are smaller, right? There are 3 or 4 members of a family all in one room, and all of them are trying to work digitally, right? So as leaders, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to be empathetic to sections of society that need support, to our own employees. And I think that's a quality that's going to continue forever. I think people are learning how to adapt more with each other. The second one is for our leaders, we want them to be more courageous. Right? I think, the more I look at it, corporate life went through a period where predictability became, there was a pattern, and that pattern perhaps took away courage from all of us. And I now think that courage is something that we want to inculcate in leaders. We want them to try different things. We want them to be thinking outside of the box, right? And not be afraid, as you said earlier, of retribution. So I think those are two qualities that I think would would probably stay. And I'm assuming resilience is always going to be there. But these two are definitely big qualities.
Where do you believe that courage comes from? How do you believe Cipla leaders could encourage more people being courageous? Give us a glimpse into that.
So I think, David, when you're a leader, I think leaders must lead, right? I've seen the best performing leaders in Cipla as people who show up, who have the courage to take this head on, to come up with solutions in adversity, right? So we're seeing, there's also a category of leaders who can't show up because they have various other obligations. But there's also a section of leaders, and this is also interesting, who'd love to abdicate, right? And these are classic moments to realize that those leaders who are not people leaders eventually try and abdicate, right? But there is a section of leaders who are very strong people leaders who show up, who make sure that they're there every time, who make sure they're working with their teams, connecting with their teams relentlessly and trying to solve problems. So I think we're trying to promote this category. We have all kinds of leaders, but we're trying to promote and reward leaders who show this courage, who are showing up, right? And making the difference with their teams.
You know me by now. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Do I need a title at Cipla to be a leader?
Historically, yes. I'd like to believe yes, right? But going forward, I've seen leadership coming out from people who, doesn't matter where they are in the hierarchy, but they have either thought leadership or they have very strong empathetic leadership, right? So many times when I speak to people, they say, oh yeah, he connected with me and he left me with this message. And he is somebody in the hierarchy that wouldn't have been a title leader for Cipla, right? So people are beginning to realize the ability of influence in leadership as against authority, the belief of love and reaching out instead of obligation, right? And so these are some of the shifts we're beginning to see. But yeah, I think the modern day teams probably more flatter, more, and I don't think hierarchies would play a very strong role going forward.
Love that. Love that leadership really is an attribute and can come from any part of Cipla's global footprint.